Hi, welcome to The Pursuit of Truth. So I was watching Sia's film Music, which I know has had a lot of controversy because of its not picking someone with learning difficulties or autism to play the part. So I don't really know why that's a problem these days. I guess the thing is I understand that nowadays we have to have more representation of different people in different parts, but I guess there are some people where acting used to be about acting. I mean, all acting is a lie. All movies are lies in the sense that they're stories, they're made up. Obviously some are based on true stories, but even those ones that are based on true stories tend to have artistic license where they add characters and plots that never even happened, or they reimagine events that they aren't historically accurate, so no one's expecting truth when you get a movie. But I suppose what's important is it expresses the problems or the inadequacies or inequalities. A message from a movie, it can be very powerful. It can awaken the mind and make people think differently about things, such as autism. See how bad it is. It had me, I haven't finished it, but it had me in tears from the very beginning of seeing, the anguish that it is to be autistic. If you're high on the spectrum, to be uncontrollable, unaware, and not have the same existence as, say, someone who doesn't have autism. Not to say there's anything against that, but back on the acting thing is, obviously, like, if you were going to play, Adolf Hitler in a movie, are people going to complain because they didn't pick a person who is a neo-Nazi? No, they're not, are they? Well, they might complain if he's not German, but I guess old school acting was that, and this is part of the thing that a lot of actors like, is becoming a character, is the challenge of, portraying something that's not you, lying. That's basically what that is. So I don't really see, just because they didn't pick an autistic child to play the part, I don't think that takes away from it if it's representing autism and making people aware. And yeah, I mean, there may be bits in the movie that are extravagant or dramatic, but I'm sure these things do happen. Obviously, I have a daughter that has autism. We don't know how bad at the moment. It seems to be mild, but it affects like her communication. And seeing that film and seeing the bit where, spoiler alert, where she's dreaming and her friend is using a torch across these two apartments into her bed while she's sleeping, and the light is shining around the room, and she's dreaming of this dog and playing with it and so happy. And it made me, I'm thinking about it now, that seems so beautiful, that in her dreams that she can have that happiness. And yet, obviously, as a person who's not autistic, you're aware of the difference and the struggle that she's having in reality, in her actual life. And then obviously it made me think about my daughter and how that's going to be. And obviously every parent prays that their child has a good existence. And this is where it leads on to the pursuit of truth in the idea of the system, autism and the system, and the sense that the world we live in isn't geared to helping people with autism or disabilities or learning difficulties or whatever label you want to give it. The world is geared for, I suppose the term is normal, although I don't believe in that term because there is no such thing as normal. Any child that's born as they are is normal because that's the way it is. Yes, you can set parameters, but you're judging normal based on 10,000, this is 10,000 people, they're all like this, so they're normal, anything else isn't normal. Well, no, that's just a human constraint, a construct. So there's no such thing, really. There may be, what you consider normal, but the system is geared towards people who are very lucky, people who are very rich and powerful, and the system doesn't really work for people who don't have any of those luxuries or luckinesses. Is that a real word? And I'm finding that out with the system when it comes to autism, the way you have to check everything yourself, you have to research everything, you have to try and find things out, you have to ask people, are they doing this, are they doing that? You know, there's lots of organisations out there, government organisations in the UK that are geared towards helping children with learning difficulties or autism, etc. But most of what they seem to be doing, and different places start at different times, some start at the age of 2, some start at the age of 3. I don't know why there's a difference, because the earlier the better. And I'm tending to find that London tends to start earlier and other places start later. And is that another reason why, you know, like London being treated better? Obviously, I've been in Croydon and now I'm in East Sussex, so I can see the difference. I mean, obviously I was born in Portsmouth, so I can see the difference between how much better things are when you go London side compared to other, especially the south. There's a difference. There's a difference in timing, there's a difference in ability, and that worries you as a parent, because every child should be treated the same no matter where they are in the world. Not even just in counties, in the world. Every child should be given the same amount, because there's no reason for it not to happen. It's the same way, this is why I don't understand with schooling as well. Why we have different levels of schooling. How do you sleep at night, being an education minister, knowing that you're allowing that to happen? In the sense that you have private schools and public schools. Okay, maybe you can get away with that because you're going to say, well, some people have to pay for the private. But why are you living in a world where you're allowing that to happen, where you're allowing there to be privilege based on money? And then, of course, education comes with that, because all the best teachers are going to be gobbled up by the private, same as we have in the NHS and private as well. This whole idea of private, but the thing is, like Labour, who are meant to be a socialist party, why have they never dismantled it when they've been in power? Because they want it, because half of them are probably Conservatives in their bank balances, and Labour in their head, but not in their heart. Because if you were a socialist party, like the Labour Party, how do you allow private enterprise to continue? Eradicate it when you get in power, but they won't. They won't ever do that. And yet you're voting these people based on this mindscape, this illusion of them being for the people and doing all these things, and then they don't do them. Then when you look at the different times that these different parties have taken place, they seem to do the same things. There's no real democracy, there's no real difference. It's always for the people who have money, who have power. And part of that is the problem with the system, that you have to keep people with power and money happy, because they're the ones that keep it all going for the rest of us. And that's why the system doesn't work. But what I'm trying to talk about with schooling is why an education minister, even if we take away the private thing, we just look at public schools. You've got Ofsted, you've got people, and this is the thing I find with autism as well, analyse. All you ever fucking do is analyse and never actually do anything. What's that all about? I don't know if that's an English thing, or that's just a way to get away with not actually ever doing anything, or because they're so inadequate they don't know what to do, so all they ever do is analyse. Instead of going around checking all these schools. All right, you have to have an analyst, you have to do that to know which one's good and which one's not. But when that's found out, why are they not brought up to the same speed? Why is it then, how is it possible that a school that is meant to educate the next generation has, one is poor, one is good, one is outstanding? Why is there that difference? What is that difference to do with? Why has that difference never been eradicated over the hundreds of years that schools have existed? Why? So is it because the schools are employing inadequate teachers? Why? Because of money? So you want to live in a system where you allow that to happen, where you allow a child, just because they're born in maybe a poorer area, where the school has, because it's a poor area, then the education of those people, then they become teachers. They don't have the same education as somewhere it's in a rich place. They become a teacher because they need to get a job, because at the end of the day, they need to make money whether they're good at it or not. There's a lot of teachers that don't like doing their job, and they're not really good at it, but they do it because they have to get money, they have to survive, because that's part of the system. So that's why you get a lot of shit people doing jobs that they shouldn't be doing. The system and money don't work. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that. But yet we all allow it to happen. We all vote for the fucking same thing all the time. No one shouts out that this isn't making sense. Everyone knows it's not making sense, but we just carry on. And so, is that what's happening then? That schools who are poor is because the teachers are poor? Because I guess that's, or is it, are the teachers really good, but somehow the students aren't? That they're unable to. Remember, all children are born with a blank canvas, and yes, there is some DNA, and there's also to do with how much or they get in nursery and their parents and what they're schooled on throughout all of us. So I don't know, but I mean, how does it still exist? Why can't it be that every school has to employ a certain amount of standard for each teacher? Each teacher is tested so that they are all outstanding. Every teacher in every school is outstanding. And then every child that comes in will have the best opportunity. Let's have private standards for public schools, for everyone. Or does the system not care? The government or the people, the ones that make the system, the ones that keep the system alive, do they not care that there's going to be people who do not have a good education, that do not have the ability to work, that do not have the ability to have a good life? Of course they don't fucking care, because if they cared, they'd change it. They don't care because they don't care when it's happening all around the world. There's some children in the world that don't get an education, that have to work because they can't afford to have an education, or their education is so poor it's not worth it. Imagine living like that. This is the system of the world that we're all voting for, that we're all keeping alive. And now back to autism, and that's what I'm saying with this. The autistic things that I find, there's lots of government organisations that are meant to be doing things, but all they mostly do is analyse. When it comes to the paediatrician, when it comes to SEND, when it comes to speech and language, all these people, they analyse. Yeah, well, they have to do that. Obviously, they need to do that to see, where the child is, and then. But the thing is, if you just analyse and you don't do anything, nothing's going to change. Or you're just hoping that God does it, or we do it. How many years has autism been known? It's over 100 now, isn't it? So you tell me that they haven't worked out good systems. This is the same thing, because it's just having to fight for things all the time. And it's not just autism, there's lots of disabilities, there's lots of things in life where you spend your time, and as you get older, you realise that you're constantly fighting. Most people don't bother, but then you realise if you don't bother, you don't get anything. And you always have to fight for things, to make things, are they doing what they're meant to be doing? Like government will say this, this and this and this, but the people who are doing the job may be inadequate or may not know these things, and you have to research them, and you have to make sure, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Because this is your children. But you shouldn't have to do that, should you? Because the system is set up that it shouldn't be like that. But the problem is humans are inadequate. Maybe that's the real problem, is humans are inadequate, and it was humans that made this system. Well, of course, the system that we live in is thousands of years old, where would you trust a 1,000-year-old person to do anything these days, but you're following their systems that they set. They couldn't even use a fucking phone. They couldn't even do a Google search, but they're the ones who set up the system that we all live within. How idiotic is that? What is the hope that they, 1,000 years ago, when they came up with the idea of money, banks, schooling, and all these things that we're all living in, yes, they've all evolved a little bit, but the main structure of them that's around the world is exactly the same. These come from 1,000-year-old men, white men's mind, if it is white men, minds that set up the system, Greek system, Latin system, whatever system it really came from, German or Africa or wherever it, Iran, wherever it came from, the system that we all live within, the template that we all live within, there's exactly the same no matter where you're born, no matter where. They all have schools, all have government, they all have, Conservative and Labour, they all have the same setup and the same inequalities. and the same inadequacies and the same things, and you're expecting that system to be fit for purpose for a generation now. But there won't be someone who's brave enough to say, wait a minute, this system was 1,000 years old. These people couldn't even do Google search. They couldn't even use an Apple phone. They couldn't even stream or download or use a computer. And yet they've come up with the system that we're living in now. Do you think that with our minds that have developed and the way the world has changed now and our perception, that we shouldn't divide each other up in colours, in countries and all sorts of other ways, that we should see each other as one? Do you think that now we can look at things and actually think about, wait a minute, is there a better way of doing this? Is this person who came up with the system that we're all living in 1,000 years ago maybe didn't think about these things? Let's have a rethink of how we should live, how we should exist, whether it's worth living by constraints, a slavery to money, to work, a slavery to unnecessary things, building 5,000 different shapes and colours of cars, 5,000 different detergents that do the exact same fucking thing, companies that make the same detergents, one that's expensive and one that's cheap, so they can get the money from the market, all these unnecessary things. You going to work to do these unnecessary things, you doing things that you're not even good at just because you need to get money, and other people suffering because of you're not good at those things, but you have to do it because you need money to survive, to have a mortgage, to have a house, to pay rent, to have food, to have a family, and all these other things. I'm almost out of air. But the problem is people really don't want to change. People are... No, this is including me, unfortunately. People, even us, truthers or woke or whoever you want to say, those people that know that the system isn't working, those people that know there's lies and know that things need to change, well, even us, because we're schooled, we're programmed in the same way, we fall back to default. We get angry, we say all these things, we think all these things, we know all these things, but we still can't change these things. Or we don't have the drive that other people who have changed things in the past have, or unless someone does. People will just sit back, even listen to this, they'll get angry. They'll think, yes, this is right. Yes, I need to do something. Oh, let me watch Netflix now. Let me watch another YouTube video of fucking rain and thunder. Yeah, I put those videos out. A lot of people like those videos. Got one that's got 200,000 views. And the reason why I do them, I do enjoy weather, but also now I do them because I'm trying to bring in, that's why I put at the end of the videos, pursuit of truth and things like that, because I want people, like when I started John Doyle Poems, it was about, it was a pseudonym to hide because I did it at college. John Doyle was a pen name that I used at college when I wrote poems to hide this movie that we made at the end, and I didn't want to put my name, so I came up with John Doyle. I don't know, when I used to do radio shows with my sister, we used to do plays. I don't know, I always used to call characters John. I don't know why that comes from. The Doyle is probably from Arthur Conan Doyle, because I had Sherlock Holmes' books. I probably looked across and picked that name. And yeah, that name has stuck. But the poems, the original poems that are on there, and the poems that I still write, they're all about these ideas of truth. They're all about these ideas of change, of inequalities, and things. But still nothing's changed, because even me, I'll do this, I'll get angry. You can see how angry I am. You see how I know that the system isn't working, but also, of course, what can I do? Even if I write a letter to the MPs, they'll just ignore you. There's no real democracy. You can't get things unless they want those things to change. Unless there's some benefit for them. Like climate change, I suspect there is a benefit for them. Well, the fact that they all have to live on the planet with us, and they don't want it to go anymore, or that there's some kind of tax they're going to get out of these things, or it's a way to chop down China and India because they're worried about them taking over the West. Whatever, usually it's only political money reasons why people do good things these days. They don't do good things because they know that the system isn't fucking working and it needs changing and needs looking at. They just talk. Analyse, talk. No action, no change. And so, like I'm saying, with me, I'll sit down, I'll do work, or I'll watch TV, and then the next day will come. Like, life is a bit like 1201 or Groundhog Day. where that is basically what it's like. We're just repeating the same things over and over again. We don't even realise it. You waste your whole life on a repeat. And those people that do stand up for change and do try and get it, usually they get brought down. Usually they get made fun of as if they're idiots. Or they find a way of bringing them down or taking the energy out of them or whatever. Just so that people don't follow. And then it makes you think, well, why do systems do that? Why are systems designed not for change, not for looking and seeing that, wait a minute, it's not working. Let's just keep what we've got. Why? Because those people who are in charge of the system, the powerful, the rich, they don't have these problems. They don't have these inequalities, or not at the same extent. They might have small versions of them, but nothing like the ones that the poor people of Africa who are starving and dying when there's food enough for everyone on the planet. Or medicine, wasting time making medicines where it just it doesn't cure you, it doesn't get rid of the disease, it doesn't stop the disease, it just manages the disease, because that's the way to make money. Another thing where you've got lots of pharmaceutical companies doing the same thing rather than all working together to try and solve diseases like cancer and HIV/AIDS. We have the potential as human beings. We've been given this. We don't know why. No one really knows why we're here. We're all born like babies, blank sheets. But we have the potential because we can learn. We have great skills as human beings. We could do so much more, so much better with our minds, with the capacity that we have to care for one another, to care for everything, whether it's human beings, whether it's nature, whether it's the planet. All of these things we have the capacity to do. But that starts with stopping the past and starting again and thinking about how better we can be, how better we can live with all these things together. Maybe that means we stop eating meat. Maybe that means we stop driving cars. Maybe that means we get rid of money. Or we get rid of this old Greek idea of governments and form a better way where people can't just stand up and not answer questions or lie or defer or just take big money and not really do anything or make any changes but keep the status quo going. We have that capacity in each one of us. Not everyone will have the same capacity, but as human beings, we have the best capacity to do all these things, to do what's best for everything. But it's up to us to do it. Take care, take it easy, God bless and peace.